So welcome to our online tutor panel. This video aims to answer the frequently asked questions that applicants tend to have about Oxford colleges, applications and interviews. And our tutors today are Conor McNichol, who's our Earth Sciences tutor and tutor for admissions, Christina de Balague, who teaches history, Barney Taylor, who teaches classics, and Dan Quigley, who teaches economics. Hi everyone. So our first questions are going to be about college life. Firstly, how do lectures, seminars, and tutorials work in each of your sort of subjects? If we start with Dan.
Yep, great. Okay, so I'm the economics fellow here at Exeter, and so that means that there are two courses that I'm involved in: PPE and E&M. So in PPE, in your first year, you're going to take courses in each of politics, philosophy, and economics. And in E&M, you would take the same course on the economics side, but also two courses in management, so general management and financial management. I can tell you most, in most detail about economics. And so for us, the teaching is mostly shared between the lectures and the tutorials. Seminars are less common. Lectures are the main delivery system for course content in economics. And they take place in large lecture theatres where all of the economists, from across your cohort, across all of the colleges, will come together, and you'll listen to the same lectures together. Tutorials are the sort of small group teaching that is meant to support the lectures and is structured in a way to try and enhance and deepen your understanding of the material that we're trying to teach. For us, the tutorials are typically in groups of 3 students to 1 fellow. And the idea is that we assign you some work a week in advance, which is typically a mix of problems and essays. You submit your work before the tutorial, and in the tutorial, you'll get some feedback on what you've answered, and that will be used as a launching pad for us to have a discussion about your thoughts on the subject, how you've approached problems, how you've approached essays, and being a sort of discursive, active environment, you're going to get lots of opportunity to develop your own ideas and ask your own questions.
Great, thanks. What about you, Conor?
So in the Earth Sciences, the course is, like most courses, it's a mixture of lectures, practical classes, and tutorials. And of course, for the Earth Sciences, we also have fieldwork involved. So in the first year, a typical week would consist of 8 to 10 lectures, 2 or 3 hours of practical classes where you'll be working in labs in the department. And the idea behind the tutorials is that the tutorials are there to sort of expand and intersect across different themes that come up in the lectures. So some of our lectures are very much focused on specific subdisciplines. And what we want to do with the tutorials is try and tie those together in a way that integrates them and gives you a better understanding of how the Earth works. The additional thing that the Earth Sciences has is, of course, the fieldwork component of the degree, where we actually go out into the field and go to a number of places. In the first year, we'll go to Wales and parts of Scotland, if we're allowed, of course. And the idea there is that we can actually go and watch real-world processes taking place in the natural environment, and then try and relate those to things that we can see in the geological past. So that's how those different teaching modes intersect in the Earth Sciences course.
Great, thanks, Conor. What about you, Christina?
So in history, you have a combination of lectures, seminars and tutorials. And in the first year, it's mainly lectures and tutorials. And you'll take 1 or 2 modules or papers in your first term, or in each of your terms. Module will have a set of, and that's usually 1 or 2 lectures per week per module. And those lectures kind of give you an overview of the paper, introduce you to the key historical arguments and events, and it's a whole range of different historians from across the faculty who give those lectures. And then alongside those lectures, you have 1 or 2 tutorial hours per week, And in history, tutorials are usually 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 with a tutor, and you'll discuss the topic that you've been focusing on that week. So for each tutorial, you'll get a reading list and an essay question, and you'll write an essay and send that to your tutor, and your tutor will read it and comment on it, often both in writing and in person in the tutorial. And just like in economics, the tutorial will use that essay as a kind of launch pad for a wider discussion to discuss your analysis of the topic, and the tutor will help you kind of think about what you've been reading in new ways and suggest ways you might think differently about it, or give you new avenues to explore. And both essays and tutorials are part of the sort of process of learning. They're not a test. It's a time where you will try out new ideas and think back over the work that you've done. It's not the sort of test at the end of the week. It's part of the process of learning. That's how it works in history.
Great, thanks, Christina. And finally, Barney.
So a lot of what's already been said will go also for classics, especially what Christina just said about history tutorials, how they work and what they're for. The classics course is split into 2 parts. The first part's called Mods, takes 5 terms. Second part's called Greats, takes 7 terms. And I'll talk about Mods primarily, I think. So your study, if you came to Exeter as a Mods student, will be split between tutorials, right, which will be, when you're doing Mods, will be 1 a week. Writing an essay for each one, usually in pairs, and then meeting with the tutor to talk about the subject, about your essay writing, about related subjects and so forth. Additionally to that, we have a very wide range of lectures, extremely wide range of lectures actually in classics across philosophy, literature, history, archaeology and linguistics, which you're free to attend as many as you want. Some will be particularly geared towards the papers you're taking, others will be more general introductions to the ancient world. Additionally to that, which is particularly important for classics, is we have language teaching. Now, language teaching takes place in classes, usually of around 10 students. And if you're beginning a language, an ancient language at Oxford, which many of our students do, you'll have a very intensive period of language learning across the first 5 terms. So certainly for the first 3 terms, you'll have a class a day, usually in the morning, not always too early in the morning. And even for those who have studied an ancient language before they get to Oxford, there's still very substantial language tuition, language learning when they arrive. After Mods, so after 5 terms, you move into Greats and things become a lot freer, if you like. You do 2 tutorials a week rather than 1. You'll usually have slightly less language teaching than you had during Mods, and your options in terms of the papers you're taking, the lecture you're attending, multiply.
Great, thanks everyone. So obviously a lot of people know that tutorials are one of the unique things about studying at Oxford, but are they quite formal?
No, they're not very formal. Like, as I was saying before, the point of the tutorial is to help you think through your ideas and to ask questions and to help you kind of develop a more sophisticated understanding of the topic that you've been reading. So if you're all kind of tense because it's too formal, you won't be able to do that. So most tutors are aiming for quite a relaxed conversation and to help you think rather than to try and test you. And the point is not to have a formal investigation.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would concur with that. That's absolutely correct. Not formal.
I think I would echo Christina's thoughts as well. One nice thing about Oxford and the college environment is also that you really get to know your tutors very well, and we get to know you very well, and that really helps actually to create a friendly environment.
Great, that's good to know. So one question that applicants ask quite regularly is it possible to sort of fail a tutorial? I'd assume from what you've said that the answer is no, but what is the case with that?
Yeah, it's absolutely impossible to fail a tutorial. If you turn up to a tutorial where you haven't prepared the material, your sort of lack of preparation may well be exposed in the tutorial. But they're not formal exams. Really, what we're trying to do is develop your thinking skills and develop an approach to understanding material. And in doing that, it's a sort of a shared journey between you and the tutor. And you know, one of the things that I've really enjoyed about teaching at Oxford is, in fact, that I often learn things from students, because students will come into tutorials and they'll have questions, and they may have looked at a particular topic or a particular problem in a way that I've never previously considered. And so, you know, to that extent, it's a very personal way of learning, and for us, it's a very personal way of teaching. And the idea behind it is, of course, that you end up with a sort of very rigorous development in a particular subject, and you end up having to defend your opinions and ideas about something, but not in an intimidating environment. It's in an environment where we're trying to encourage you to explore the topic and to think quite deeply about it.
Yeah, second that.
Yeah, that's right. I think. I mean, it's certainly not possible to fail, but it is possible, of course, to get an answer wrong. That's going to happen all the time, but that's not, of course, the same as failing. Part of the purpose of the tutorial is to, you know, take you through your wrong answers, as it were, and help you understand why they're wrong and how you might get them right in the future, or how you might improve your approach in the future. And I might add, this is true for classics at least, I don't know about other subjects, that work for tutorials for me isn't marked. I mean, it's marked insofar as I give feedback, very extensive feedback, but I don't put grades on the work other than mark for tutorials at all. So you won't come out of it thinking, oh, I got an A, a B, a C, or anything like this. That kind of grading for me is irrelevant for essay writing, and really defeats the object of a tutorial. It's much more about getting the ideas, responding to them, discussing them, and trying to move closer towards the truth.
Great, thanks everyone. So all four of you are obviously tutors at Exeter College. What are the academic facilities at Exeter like, and how close to university facilities are they?
Well, they're extremely close if you're a humanities student. The Bodleian Library is pretty much rubs up against our own library. It's about 1 metre, I think, between the two different sites. You're extremely well placed for the Bodleian Library. You're extremely well placed if you're looking into classics for the Sackler Library and the Ashmolean Museum, which are very, very important sites for classicists. Yeah, you couldn't really be closer, I think it's fair to say.
I think the same goes for history. The History Faculty Library is right next door to Exeter. We've also got a really excellent college library, which has fantastic history collection. And we have historic archives, which we use to introduce you to archival research and, you know, to actually get your hands on some historical documents. So we've got some really great facilities. We're really lucky.
And for the sciences, the college is located about 400 metres from the university science area. So anyone who's studying the sciences, you'll find that it is possible to roll out of bed at 10 to 9 and still make it in time for your 9 o'clock lecture.
So I thought economics actually was. I was going to wax lyrical about how close we are at Exeter to the economics department and politics. It's a 10-minute walk, which I think is a short distance, but I'm thoroughly trumped.
Brilliant. So sort of the final question about like college life, I suppose, is for those applicants who are perhaps the first people in their schools and in their families to apply, and they don't know anyone who goes to Oxford already. Would that put them at a disadvantage when applying, do you think?
No, not at all. The work that you do will be new to everybody, and the way that we work will be new to everybody. At college, one of the sort of good things about the kind of one-to-one system that we've all been talking about is that we can help every student work out the best way for them to learn. It doesn't matter what their background is. And one of our key purposes is to help people feel comfortable and have a good understanding of how the institution works and how their subject works. And so it definitely isn't a disadvantage if you don't know anyone who hasn't been to Oxford or Cambridge or even to university.
Absolutely right. Second that.
Brilliant. And I think a lot of people will have questions about sort of the application process and about interviews in particular. So it's possibly good to sort of move on that way now as well. So I was just wondering, why does Oxford interview, and what is it that you're actually looking for in those interviews?
Well, one of the main reasons that Oxford has admissions interviews is, of course, that almost all our applicants will have achieved very, very high grades in school. Now, when we say very, very high grades, people do sometimes think that unless you have, 9 A stars at GCSE, you don't have a chance of getting in, and that's not true. One of the things we're very interested in, and one of the things we're looking for, is a trajectory. So, in other words, even if you have what might seem relatively modest GCSEs, but you are really on an upward trajectory in terms of your understanding of a subject, and in terms of your school performance, we are very interested in looking at you. Now, having a cohort or a group of applicants that all have very high grades, it's very hard to distinguish between them on paper. So that's the reason we have interviews. And the idea behind the interviews is it's not a or a test, but rather what we want to see is how you think about a subject. And in particular, we're interested in seeing, trying to sort of see beyond the kind of training that you get in school in particular subjects, and trying to see, have you read more widely or have you thought more deeply about your particular subject than would be typical in a typical in a typical school. And the reason we want to do that is we're really trying to spot potential as well as achievement. We're really trying to spot people who really have the potential to sort of kick on from school and really engage with the way we teach here, and engage with their subjects. And we're also looking at motivation, because what we're not interested in is producing a particular kind of student or a particular kind of Oxford type. What we're actually looking for is students who really are passionate about their subjects, really want to engage with their subjects in a very rigorous and very deep way, and make the most of the opportunities that they're going to be given when they get here.
Yeah, I'd add to second all of that. The other thing is, it also gives you a chance to see whether you are going to like a tutorial system, because an interview is not unlike a tutorial. So it gives you a sense of what it would be like to come and study under this system, and it gives us a chance to see whether you enjoy thinking, whether you enjoy the kinds of conversations, and whether you are able to think on your feet in the ways that's very difficult to tell from written work.
I think in that way it makes, it contributes to a sort of a fairer process, actually. So I think that, like, how engaged a student is in the interview is probably less well correlated with their background than maybe their narrow grades are. And so having that extra information and getting to learn more about you helps to contribute to, I think, a fairer process. I think I'd say that some of the best interviews that I've been part of so far have not been the ones where the candidate was the most polished. It's the ones where the candidate really got involved with the problem that I presented to them, wrestled with it, explained their thinking as they were going, and even if actually their thinking started to drift off onto into a sort of unrelated area, that they responded well to feedback, that they could listen to my side of the conversation and use that to come to a more well-rounded answer. And again, those interviews are not necessarily ones where people come from more privileged backgrounds.
But also to say, because that also sounds quite intense, which is that we all appreciate that everyone will feel very nervous, and we're not looking to catch anyone out. Absolutely not. And trying to think about making sure that you can do your best in the interview.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'd add, if I might, in classics at least, I'm not primarily interested in what you know, and certainly not primarily interested in how much you know. What I am interested in is how you're able to deploy what you know, or indeed what you've been told in the interview, in response to questions you might not be expecting, which is to say, not trying to catch you out, but just to push you to areas that might be unfamiliar to you. and see what your capacity for independent thinking is, how easily you're able to follow an argument. Despite having said I'm not interested in how much you know, I am interested in discovering that you've been reading outside your school syllabus on your own. I'll be interested. Often I'm interested with candidates to talk about what they've been reading on their own, as it were, because that's one way in which you can demonstrate, if you like, a capacity for independent thought, independent study that's going to be particularly pertinent to study here at Oxford.
One thing I would say to candidates is actually you should treat it as an opportunity. You know, it's an opportunity to demonstrate that you are genuinely interested in studying a particular subject, and that you're genuinely interested in grappling with hard questions in that subject. And I think, as everybody said, we don't expect people in an interview to have all the answers to those difficult problems. Sometimes the problems we're going to present you with at interview don't have a clear answer, and what we're more interested in is the way in which you engage with the problem and tackle the problem. And sometimes, and this is slightly anecdotal, but often people come out of the interview thinking it's gone terribly because they haven't got to what they perceived to be the end of the problem or the solution to the problem. But in fact, you know, not getting to the solution or not getting to an end point is not the point of the interview. The point of the interview is the process by which you've taken on and grappled with that problem.
Great, thanks everyone. So a question that we also get asked quite often is about when two or more people from the same school are applying. So if in your subjects 2 people from the same school applied to Exeter College, would that put them at a disadvantage? Would you put them against each other and start trying to make them compete specifically?
No.
No, it's irrelevant.
It's an easy one.
Yeah, that's an easy one. It's one that people often sort of assume that they'll automatically be compared, and you will only take one person per school. So it's good to know that that's not the case.
No, if the top 2 candidates in a given subject, you know, they could be twins. If they were the top 2, they're the top 2, and we'll offer them places.
Fair enough. Another question that we get asked about from students who are making a choice about different colleges is it harder or easier to get into Exeter for your subjects?
For history, it makes no difference. As part of the admissions process, candidates get moved around so that there's a roughly equal ratio of candidates interviewed to places across all the colleges. So it won't make any difference.
It's the exact same in economics.
Yeah, and it's the same in earth sciences. We operate a highly coordinated admission system. All candidates to all colleges will get at least 2 interviews. And at those interviews, we actually mix up tutor pairings between colleges so that you're seen by tutors from at least 4 different colleges. And the idea behind that is that college choice doesn't play a role in the ultimate decision whether or not to offer you a place. So.
Yeah, a very similar principle guides classics admissions. We put an immense amount of care as a faculty, so all the tutors from different colleges getting together and ensuring that those who have applied to Oxford for Classics and who deserve a place, who really deserve a place, will get one if we're able to give it to them. So it shouldn't make a difference whether you've applied to Exeter or indeed to any other college. We'll do our best. If we think that you're deserving of a place and we think we have space for you, we'll give you one.
Great, that's good to know. Thank you. So the final question for this little panel is about resources for your subject and resources from the college. So where's the best place to go to try and, you know, take a look at some resources from Exeter or from your faculties and departments?
So a good place to start for resources from Exeter is our website, I guess. It's www.exeter.ox.ac.uk. And there's lots and lots of information on there that you'll find useful. But also both the college itself and the student body have presences on social media. So it's a good place to go and see what we're getting up to in the college. You know, on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, you can find Exeter's presence there. And I think, Stephanie, you'll correct me if this is wrong, but the Exeter JCR is the student-run social media presence, and we have accounts, or the students run accounts on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, that's right. Fab. Any other resources people recommend?
Well, I'd recommend looking at the history faculty website to find out more about the course, because one thing that you need to know is that you like the look of the course at Oxford as well. You know, courses vary enormously across universities, and you want to be sure that it offers the kind of thing that you want to study. So I'd definitely check that out.
Likewise for the classics faculty website.
I would say that for all subjects, you should make sure that you're very clear in advance of applying as to what the course entails and what the course requirements are. So it's very important. Go to the central website, www.ox.act.uk, and then you can follow the links through to the individual courses that you might be interested in. And there are also a wealth of interesting digital resources on there. Things like Oxplore are good resources for you to delve into to sort of get a feeling for the kinds of questions and things that we grapple with. And there are also a number of resources on there that deal with things like the kinds of interview questions that we ask, etc. And they're all useful things to help you prepare your application.
Great, that's all the questions for today. So thank you to the tutors for joining us, and thank you obviously to everyone who eventually watches this video as part of the open days. So yeah, if there's if anyone has any questions about Exeter specifically, check out our website and send us an email if you have any questions. And other than that, best of luck to anyone who applies this year, and thanks a lot.
We look forward to meeting you.
Yeah, indeed.
Great. Thanks.